Hey, how's it going? I hope you're well. So, in interviews, they very often, if not always, ask this Terraform question. I've had it many times, and I'm going to show you the perfect answer. And to get there, we're going to do a live hands-on demo. So, in Terraform, what is the difference between the count and the for each meta arguments? That's what we're going to look at. So, let me just leave this document here, and what I've done is I've put all the files that we're going to use in this directory on my personal Linux server. This is where we're going to do things from. I've already done a Terraform init just to save a little bit of time. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy from this code samples folder that I already prepared ahead of time. I'm going to copy this first simple example here. Let's take a look at this. So at the very top, we've got the AWS provider and the default region. You're going to see this in every single Terraform file that I make. And we also have this thing here, which is this unique prefix. So it can just be like company name or something. I'm going to use this in all the examples as well. So what we've got here is a resource, AWS S3 bucket, very simple. And we're using a count meta argument. So count and for each are meta arguments, and you get them many others as well, and you use them with resources. So in this case, it's going to make 3 buckets, and you can see it makes the bucket name by taking the word bucket. It then adds that prefix up here, widgets or rows, and it then adds an index depending on which particular bucket out of those 3 it is. So just like in regular programming, it's going to start the index from 0. We should see 0, 1, and 2. But let's take a look. Let me come out of here and let's run a Terraform plan. So I'm going to clear the screen. Terraform plan out equals plan file. I'll let Terraform do its thing, and it should come back with a plan. Here we go. 3 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. Let's just take a closer look up here, and we've got 3 different resources, and you can see here there's an index, square brackets, 0, square 1, square 2, and also you can see here it's determined the name, so bucket, widgets or rows, dash, whatever the index is. So 3 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. Let's apply this now. And it should be very quick because it's just a few buckets. It's not really a big deal. There we go. You see the indexes. You may notice that they're kind of out of order here. You've got 1, 0, and 2, 1, 0, and 2. And my guess is that it just sort of issues all the API calls simultaneously, and then it just kind of waits for them all to come back. So that's why they kind of get created in a weird order. Anyway, it didn't take long. It created 3 resources. Let's just double check that these resources are here. I'm going to run the AWS S3 ls command. And there you go. We got 3 buckets created to the second, all at the same time. So that's cool. Now, that's all very good, but nobody really uses count like that. So I'm going to show you here another way to do it. So let me copy another sample file, and I'm going to copy a different one called count config list. Okay, let's have a look at this. Now, the first part is the same as before, but we now introduce a variable, and it's a list of type string, and in here you can see we've got 0, 1, and 2. Now at this stage we could just start using like a word or letters of the alphabet, A, B, C or something. So although you see 0, 1, and 2, they're not numbers, they're not integers, they're actually in this case strings, which can be numbers or it can be letters, it can be words, it can be a combination. But I'm doing this as a demonstration to show, well, you'll see in a second, but anyway, we'll go down here, resource S3 bucket. Now we have a count, and it takes the length of the variable. So even if we add more later on, it will automatically create the required number of buckets that corresponds to the number of strings that we have in this list here. And if you look at the bucket, we've got bucket, and it's the same here, bucket, widgets or rows, and this part is slightly different. It's saying from that variable that we've got with 0, 1, and 2 in it, then depending on which one, take that particular value. So if I had ABC here, then it would, for the first one, the 0th bucket, it would take A. For the first bucket, it would take B. For the second bucket, it would take C. But in our case, it just happens to be the same, 0, 1, and 2. And I've done that on purpose, which will become clear very, very soon. So let's come out of here. What I also want to just show you, just to underline this, in case it really wasn't that clear to you, is I'm just going to run the diff command, and then you'll see what I mean. So you see here we've introduced this variable. So green is what we've introduced, red is what we removed. So we introduced this variable, and as far as the count statement goes, we took away the one that said count equals 3, and we want to determine that dynamically based on the variable, take the length of it. And the one we took away was count.index, and we now introduce var.bucket names count.index. So I think you should see that makes it a lot more clear. So let's get rid of the original example, count-simple, and then what we're left with now, if I just clear the screen, we're just left with a new one, the one that uses the list. So let's run this now, and Terraform plan equals plan file. And you'll see what I'm talking about here shortly. And there you go. So I don't know if you expected that, but because all we did was we just used the exact same configuration as before. We used 0, 1, and 2 as those strings in that variable, and therefore there's nothing to change. So basically those two pieces of code are completely equivalent, and that's what's nice. So I want to show you the real way in the real world that actually this tends to be done, because it's slightly different. So let's have a look. We're going to copy now a different one. We're going to copy count, I think it's config map, and we're going to put that here. And let's have a look at this. So if I just start from the beginning, we've got the usual thing with the provider, the prefix, and the variable has now changed. So let's have a look at this. So what I'm trying to show you here is that you can have a lot more advanced configuration. Okay, so we can use this configuration even if we just wanted to have the name. And what we've got here is we've got a list with an object inside it, and inside the object we've got several parameter equals, or well, I don't want to use the word variable because that's something else, but you know, let's just say object equals string, or something equals string. So you can see here name, a tag for the cost center, and a tag for the environment. So we've actually, not only are we using this new map, but we're also not just doing that, but we're also going ahead and adding tags as well. So I think you can see how this works. Let's just go down here. I just want to show you here on the bucket configuration. That's the same as before, but this is new. After the bucket and the prefix name, we now have this var.bucketconfig count.index.name, and then for tags, something very similar, but it's .tag cost center .tag environment. So you can see how this works. Let me make that a bit more clear to you by running a diff again. I always think it's a bit better to do that. Let me clear the screen first. So we've got diff color, and we're going to do count config list, and now we want to do count config map. And if I scroll up a bit, you can see that originally we had this variable that had a list in it, list type string, and we now have this variable which is a list, and within it is an object, and within that you can see various something equals something type things. I've called it a map, but strictly speaking, I'm not sure that this is a map, but forget about that. You can see how it works. If we go down here now, originally it was count length on that list of strings. Now it's count length on this, which, just because we're using a a different variable name. Before it was only the names that we were doing, so I changed it to call it config because it contains names and tags and possibly more in future. And then in terms of the bucket name, how it's defined, you can see how it's different, that it's not just simply count.index, but it's count.index dot whatever it is you're looking for. So whether it's name, tag cost center, tag underscore environment. And this is a bit more real world how you would do it. And I just want to say as well that a lot of people think that with count you can't do this kind of advanced configuration, that you can only have the original simple example that we had. No, you definitely can do quite advanced stuff with count, and this actually proves it. So let's get rid of the, let me clear the screen. Oops. Clear. Let's remove that other file, which was count config list, because we're now going to apply this new one. And let's do a Terraform plan. Okay. And you can see that compared to before, what it's now doing is, because the bucket names didn't actually change, however, we're adding these tags. That's what all the green pluses are. We're adding cost center tags and environment tags. So 3 to change. So let's apply this. Let's do a Terraform apply plan file. And again, this won't take too long. And again, it does it in a funny order. No, I really don't know why that's the case. And you can see the 3 resources were changed. So let me just prove this to you. I made a little script that uses the AWS CLI to display all buckets and show the tags. So let's have a look. It's a little bit janky, this script. It's not something that is for production use or anything. But you can see that the first bucket, 0, has got cost center an environment, and you can see the other buckets as well, 1 and 2. So we've got cost center 1, cost center 2, cost center 3, prod, dev, stage. And that's exactly what we were trying to do. So yeah, you can definitely, with count, achieve quite advanced configuration. It's not just the case that you can only have a bucket and call it 0, 1, and 2. You can add tags, you can configure other stuff, you can do quite a lot of things, you can have quite advanced variables. Now, what about if we want to maintain this? So let's clear the screen and let's have a look at this. Let's go in here. Now let's say that we want to get rid of this bucket in the middle, because I think it's safe to say that if we just keep adding more buckets, then there's probably not going to be an issue, right? But what if we need to remove a bucket? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this part out in the middle. There we go. And let me save this. And let's run a plan again. And we'll see what happens. Okay, refreshing the state. Right, now the first thing you should take note of here is it says 2 to destroy and 1 to add. Now what's going on there? Because we only really want to destroy 1. We don't want to do anything else. And this here is the biggest drawback of count. So I'm going to show you from the top. So what it says is, it says the middle bucket, because we know that because it has the index of 1. It must be replaced. And if you look here, the bucket name, it claims here that we have configured this so that the bucket name of, I'm going to call this a second bucket, right, is changing to the name of the third bucket, because we wanted to delete this bucket. So it's saying that this resource, as it sees it, Terraform sees this as index 1 bucket, or the second bucket. It thinks that we want to change the name, and that's not possible, so it thinks that we need to replace it. So this is obviously wrong. And again, it's done the same thing with the tags. Look, cost center 2 to 3, development to staging. And if you look down here for the next one, it says that the last bucket, or we should call it bucket with index 2, or the third bucket, will be destroyed. And it says because it's out of range. Okay? Because we only have 2 buckets left, it doesn't want a third bucket anymore, and it tries to delete it. So you can see this is completely the wrong way to go about it. That count assumes that all the buckets are kind of identical, maybe even the contents. It just doesn't care. It just treats them all the same, as if they're just like candy in a jar or something. It doesn't care whatsoever, and it cannot handle maintaining it like this. If you just want to edit them, take out the middle one, something like that, it's just terrible. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put back the original Terraform file, which was the one before that edit that we just did. So let me just do that. Let me clear the screen, sorry. So copy from samples the count config map. We'll put this back in here, and we've overwritten it. And what I'm also going to do is I'm now going to show you something better than count, which is, at least for this use case, which is for each. So I'm also going to copy that here. And let's have a look at this new one, the for each. Right, so the first part is the same as usual. Now let's look at the variable for the bucket configuration. Now I don't know if you can tell, we will do a diff, but this is slightly different. So we now got a type. This is a genuine map. The previous one wasn't a map. That was my bad with the file name. A type of map object with cost center and environment, and then the default assignment is like this. And what you've got here is, this is the key. Now in this case it's a number, but again, like I said before, it could easily just be a word or something from the alphabet. But what we're saying is, we're saying that for this key, the appropriate values are the 2 different tags. But don't worry, we'll be able to refer later not only to these values, but we can also refer to the key as well. So if we look down here to see how this has changed, then we now have, instead of count, we've got for each. And we say for each inside this variable, I guess element, or whatever the correct word is, that the bucket name is now ending with each.key, and the tags are each.value dot whatever the the cost center or the environment. And let me do a diff so that it looks even better. So let's do a diff color count config map and for each. So let me just scroll up for you. So you see here, before we had a list object, now we have a map object. And before we had the assignment name equals whatever, we don't have that anymore. Instead we've got the key specified, okay? 0, 1 and 2. And then if we go down here, instead of count equals length of the bucket, length of the variable, we've got for each equals the variable itself. So this is just the syntax, the way it works. And for the bucket name, instead of var dot the variable count dot index dot name, we're now saying that it's just each key. So that's a lot simpler. It's a lot nicer. And for the other, for the values that we're going to use from that variable, you can see here. Originally we had the configuration variable and then count dot index dot tag whatever. Now we've got each value of tag. This is a lot cleaner. This is a lot nicer. I hope you can see that. So let's give this a go. I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to remove the one that we had before, which was of course count config map, because we don't need that anymore. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a Terraform plan. So Terraform plan out equals plan file, and let's see what happens. I mean, I'm not sure what you think will happen. This is the equivalent. It's just using for each instead of count. Let's see what happens. You'd be interested to see this. Okay, now look, 3 to add, 3 to destroy. So it's not, it's not the case It's not like it's just saying nothing to change. It actually wants to remove everything that we made so far and create something new. So let me show you why. So if I go to any of these original ones using count, it doesn't matter which one, it says will be destroyed because resource does not use count, because the new one uses for each. And because of that, it wants to destroy the old and create the new, and that's why. I mean, here it's not saying anything special, it's kind of what we would expect, but the key is here, because resource does not use count. So in real life, if you were migrating from count to for each, this is not the way that you would do it. What you would probably do is use the for each one like I've done, but then you need to use Terraform import to import the existing resources. That would be the way to do it. So clearly, although I've shown the equivalent with for each, clearly this is not actually going to work right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to destroy, oops, clear. I'm just going to destroy everything that we've got so far. And then I'm gonna rerun it, and it should just create 3 new buckets using for each. And then I'll just do a list buckets just to prove to you that it worked. So do you want to destroy everything? Yes. Okay, great. And now let's do a Terraform plan again. Okay, 3 to add, 0 to change, 0 to destroy. Very good. So let's do a Terraform apply plan file. Now you see here, this is not the same as the index we had before. I mean, I don't know if this is technically what's referred to as an index, but remember, you see here, this is a string because it's got the double quotes around it. So that's different from what we saw before. It's not treating this as a number. I believe it's probably treating this, I'm not sure, as a key, I think, if I understand this correctly. So it created them. Let's just double check. I'm going to run that script. List buckets. We should get the same as before. There you go. You got 3 buckets, 0, 1, 2, and the different cost centers and the different environments. So we have the same end result, but a bit cleaner code, I think. And not only that, but there's also, this is a much better advantage. I mean, the cleaner code is nice, but it doesn't really matter. If we look at this, let's try what we did before. Let's try again. Let's take out that middle bucket. So I'm going to take out this part here. I think that's right. Yes, took out the middle bucket. Let's save this. And let's do a plan again. I'm just going to scroll up to plan file. And let's see if it does that weird thing again, or if it actually handles it in a more elegant way. And there you go. It says 1 to destroy, which should be the one in the middle. So if I scroll up, it says bucket 1 will be destroyed because 1 is not in the map. And just to confirm, it's bucket 1, blah blah blah. Okay. You know, it's just asking you to confirm. Do you want to go ahead and do it? So yeah, let's say yes. Let's clear the screen. Terraform apply plan file. It should be quick because these are just buckets, and it says it's destroyed. So let's just do that list buckets. There should only be 2 buckets, the first and the last. There should be no more middle bucket. So bucket 0, bucket 2, and cost center 1 and 3, which is what we expect. So it worked. It's great. It can handle for each. Doesn't assume that each resource is the same, and it doesn't matter if the order's shuffled. It treats them as separate, and that's exactly what we want. You can see that count is really only good if you're not going to change anything, or if maybe you're just going to add resources, but you can't really do any proper modifications. For each is way better, and this is the strongest reason to use for each. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to clean up, and I'm going to show you a kind of bonus or wildcard use case for count, which is probably not what they intended when they created that meta argument, but it's actually very useful. So this is another use case for count. So I'm just cleaning up here and just getting rid of the remaining 2 buckets. So let's just say yes. Okay, let's clear the screen. And if I go AWS S3 just make sure we've got no buckets left. It should return nothing indeed. And I'm also just going to remove that for each Terraform file. And now let me copy over. I have another sample file. This is a clue as to what you can do. Now let's have a look at this. Oops, I forgot to put the destination. Let's have a look at this. Now, this you're used to seeing. It's just a provider. I haven't got any variable for the name or anything special. I'm doing everything static. So I got this new variable called create bucket. And it's Boolean, and at the moment it's set to be true. Obviously it can be set to be false. And here is a resource for the bucket. We got something very different here. And I believe this is called a ternary expression or something like that, because there's 3 parts to it. By the way, the bucket name is just static. I really don't care what the bucket name is. I just made something up. And what you see here is we got count equals, and what this does is it says inspect this, and if it's true, then set the count to be 1. I can make it 2 or 3, but basically if the variable is true, set the count to be 1. If the variable is false, set it to be 0. And what we've ended up doing by having this 1 and 0 is this now acts as a switch. So this is conditional. It's conditional. Creating this resource is conditional upon this being set to be true. And I'm just going to demonstrate that to you right now. So let me just quit out of here. Let's clear the screen. Let's do a Terraform plan. I mean, I'm not even going to apply this. I'm just going to demonstrate a Terraform plan. Okay, want to add. We just confirm that there's a bucket with index 0. That's what we expect, and that's the bucket that we expected. Okay. However, what if we go back in and we change this to be false? Let's save this right quick, and let's run that plan again and see what it says. And hopefully, there we go. Nothing to be created, basically. Because we said it's a false, then the value of count is 0. There's nothing to create. So you can see that actually, you can see it's not really, count wasn't really intended for that, but it's a kind of byproduct that turns out to be quite useful. So that is a pretty cool thing about count, and it's something I don't think you can do with for each, unless someone wants to correct me. So let's go back to the question, the original question. In Terraform, what is the difference between the count and for each meta arguments? It's very common in interviews, and people normally ask this to see if you have a bit more intermediate to advanced knowledge and truly understand the difference, when to use either one. And here's the answer that you can use. The count refers to each resource by an index and assumes, well, the resources are similar. Therefore, it's unsuitable for maintaining unique resources. Use for each instead. However, count can be used in a conditional expression, which is what I showed you at the end. So that is the answer. I hope you found this useful. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel and come back for more. And I will see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.